Well, welcome back into the mid-Norfolk cottage garden. Another beautiful spring or early summer really, isn't it? Morning. Things are just coming on so quickly now with a little bit of warmth we're getting. Just look at these chives. Just ordinary garden chives. We grow them as not a cut flower because the smell of them is too strong to use them for that, but certainly as a culinary flower. These very rarely get cut. They just give us this beautiful allium-like display every year, very reliably, very easy to grow from seed. The oxeye daisy is just starting to come into flower now here in Norfolk. I absolutely love this. It's one of my favourite cottage garden plants. So reliable, such a good big flusher colour, and it's so striking with these really well held and good sized yellow scented white daisy like flowers. Absolutely beautiful. Just self seeds itself along here. In fact, it self seeds all over the place. We're starting to grow a little bit in pots, almost as bedding. I'll just show you that. Again, self seeded, which gave us the idea. These were filled with alstroemeria last year. The actual plants we grew in there did superbly as container plants, but didn't overwinter. I think it may have just been either a little bit too wet in there or too cold and exposed. Planted a little bit more alstroemeria in the base to come up, but these self-seeded oxeyes are going to give us a real tall standard display over the next couple of weeks. This border's looking incredibly lush. You can see the planting style we've got is to allow everything to tumble into each other and fill in. And try and keep the weeding down to an absolute minimum. Despite that, you can see little bits of bindweed still coming through in this border. Really looking forward to seeing what these irises are. Can't remember from last year what we planted here. Doing really well. We're trying to keep the cottage garden seedlings from around the bases of these to give them a little bit of a better chance and more light. But the long view looking down this old kitchen garden now, transformed into a cutting garden, and floral display from our barn. It's really very pleasing. Morning sunlight just tumbling through. Canopy of trees that are just exploding into leaf again this year down in the far part of the garden. Won't be long before this borders a mass of rosebud. Just look at what we've got coming on here. Just starting to show a little bit of colour, and the peonies as well. Looking really good this year. Some really good sized buds on those as well. Very close to opening. This whole border is filled with roses growing through the old apple trees, and the actual massive tree behind there got a Paul's Himalayan musk that's just tumbling over again, looking really promising this year. I've got some more irises I'm going to take you to see now, which are just at their absolute best. This little planting of irises really was just the only place I could think to pop all the spares we had coming out of the old iris border. But just look at the display we've had from them in just the first season. If somebody was asking me, I'd say irises, once you transplant them, don't particularly like it and take a couple of years to get established. But these have proven me wrong, really. All planted out the end of last season. We've got them planted quite superficial on what isn't great soil. It used to be a lawn here, which we got fed up with cutting because it was so awkward right against the base of this shed. Just planted on there superficially, and then we're top dressed around them with gravel. So actually the rhizomes themselves, as you can see here, they will work themselves to the surface, but they're pretty well covered, which again you're not supposed to do, but they're loving it. We've got a mixed planting in here. As I say, when you are working with these at the end of each season, you very rarely remember what you've got, so they've been mixed all up. There's even a little yellow flag iris in there, as you can see. Obviously the biggest variety is this one. Got plenty of those, but this gorgeous pure mauvey purple is just a stunning flower, absolutely gorgeous. We've even managed to miss one of my all-time favourites. I think this is Jacksonia lemon, an old 19th century French variety of bearded iris, which is just outstanding. Just look at that with those fine furry throats coming through. Absolute stunner. coppery, bronzy yellow and gold. Big flowers as well. Flower all the way down the stem in sequence, so that's the first flower. One of the criticisms of irises is that they're always so transient in their flowering, very quick to come into blossom. I just love looking at this stage as well. I think the beauty in growing a plant well is watching it develop its flower buds. It's almost as good as when it bursts into flower like this, but to capture this on film and be able to come back and watch it later, part of the joy for me in sharing this garden with you. Managed to keep a few of these alliums. One of our disasters here in the garden. We did plant 250 of those bulbs on the base of this little lavender hedge. You can see we've only managed to, on this side, keep half a dozen or so out of the probably 75 or 100 that were planted there, and the reason being this is the lowest level of the garden and it was underwater, not deeply underwater, just an inch or so, but for most of the late winter and early spring. Alliums obviously can't deal with that, although the irises just behind here did. But these just being that little bit higher, awarding us with this lovely view through them with that big head purple allium looking so good. We've got plenty of little seedlings as well. We did collect and offer the seeds of these on the Gardener's Cottage website, and just look, we've got self-sown hundreds of little plants coming up, which will take a couple of years to grow on. I think we'll just let them find where they're happy and grow them on into this border. And this is our other big iris success. For years we just had the little water feature on the old broken up millstone here. Decided last year, after talking about it and thinking about it for several years, to dig out a little round board. It's only about 2 feet deep, perfectly round about the millstone in the centre, and plant them with this iris that we were moving to save it from the builders as they renovate the barns in the courtyard. And just look, again in 1 year, beautiful display of iris here. I was looking at thickening this up to try and densify the colour, but I think it's quite delicate in the way you just look through with the upright stems at the moment. All a monoculture of this lovely blue one. The beauty of growing these irises after a few years is clumps become extremely dense and thick, and you can divide them again into young rhizomes, planted out, fed and watered last year. Again, this was incredibly wet, and again these have been sitting underwater for a couple of months beginning of this year. I really did think they were likely to rot off and not do anything at all, but unless this is their death throes and they're going to keel over on me, we've got away with it. Looking absolutely superb. Do love this light blue colour, and now's an ideal time to go iris shopping if you want to see what you're going to get rather than just from a label. Here in the UK they're in almost full bloom now, but by selecting your variety you can get a little bit of succession in the flowers. This is the Jacksonia lemone, flowering in that warm sunny spot in front of the shed that we just showed you. This is 3 rows of that we divided, planted up. Again, same technique, planting them into a soil where they've been growing for a long period of time. And iris is pretty tough, it will take that. It doesn't need too much in the way of a rich soil. It's better grown hard, I think, to flower well. And here's the proof in the pudding. I didn't think we were going to get any flower on these at all this year. Well, I think we're going to have an absolutely beautiful display here, but again, a week or so, maybe 10 days later, none of these showing any colour in the blooms yet. All going to be that lovely golden coppery yellow colour with those bright yellow throats. At the base of this old rose arch covered in ramblers. This is what gave us the idea for planting those alliums down in the newer planted area of the garden. This used to be on the side of an old swimming pool, retained behind a concrete wall. Got very little light, but since we've taken all that away and planted this new garden in front of it, these alliums are really doing much better. Combination of a little bit of top dressing, but the extra light I think that they're getting here is doing them a world of good. Interplanted with peonies, again Sarah Bernhard, I think the predominant variety we've got in here, still just coming into bud but looking very, very good. Lovely to watch these develop over the course of a couple of weeks. In this border we've got a lot of planting of herbaceous geranium. Kate's a big fan of these herbaceous geraniums. She loves the little delicate flowers on them. Let's show you a few of the different varieties we've got here. In the foreground, this very dark purple black little small flowers. They're only about 2 to 3 centimetres across, but held around 6 to 8 inches above the dome of foliage, filling in really nicely. Very easy to propagate these. A little bit of variation on the leaf as well for interest earlier in the season. Next to it, one still a couple of weeks off flowering. Just see the buds just developing up on this. A deeply serrated leaf with no stippling on it. Plenty of flower coming on that. Nice bit of nettle coming through it, which has missed our attention. And behind it, this little pink powder puff beauty. Masses of flowers, held again around 4 to 5 inches above the dome of foliage. Doing so beautifully, just completely wrapping itself around that what looks like a moss rose coming through at the top. With a lovely dense canopy below. Earlier in the season these are just domes of green, quite architectural, lovely things to grow. When they finish flowering, seeded, we'll be giving them the Chelsea chop later in May, and they'll do this all again later in the season. Not quite as floridly and bright as this, but they're a really good value plant to grow in your cottage garden. Another version here, very similar in colour to the first one we showed you, but different form. Around 3 foot tall this, with much higher spikes of flower. Again the same variation on the base. Plenty of flower bud to come on there, as you can see. They just give this very delicate little splattering of colour throughout the border at this time of year. Nothing blousy about them, just absolutely beautiful when you get close up and appreciate those gorgeous little flowers. Another little beautiful cerise pink one here. Bright enough just to make a splash of colour under this rose bush that's again going to give us some beautiful display in about a week to 10 days. And again the cerise pink one planted here with a much larger leaf variety yet to come into flower behind it. And this one's just winding its way through this border in a lovely way. Just drifts of pink through the base of the roses, waiting for those to explode into colour over the next week. I had to come back and show you this Astrantia, just exploding into that rich, deep red flower. Almost looks like the dried flower. Can't remember the name of those off the top of my head, but they're quite a thick, waxy type leaf these. We've done really well with them in this garden. Brought back as seedlings from East Ruston, where we saw them for the first time, this beautiful red variety. And again, you may have spotted it in this geranium just popping through. They've self-seeded true for us here, and we've managed to propagate quite a few of them, got them sprinkled across this border just to give you that depth of colour at this early stage before the roses explode. And talking of exploding, I think this catmint, Six Hills Giant's, about to burst into its full flower, and this border will be an absolute wash with the bees, just feasting on that nectar over the whole of the rest of the summer. I've shown you these euphorbias at various stages over the last few weeks, still giving us this beautiful display of lime green bracts and foliage underneath what's now this red canopy of the shrubs above it, and it won't be long before we're starting to get some trickle feeding rose blossoms just dripping off the flowering apple above. Long border down here with the euphorbias in the foreground, again just exploding into colour in the morning sunlight here. This quite mature planting of azaleas every year rewards us with an explosion of what to some eyes is quite garish colour, but from a distance just drifts of blossom working their way up towards the top of the dark ivy and holly hedge behind. Works really well. Brighter the colours against the dark background. It's a really fantastic planting. First of the roses here to start doing its thing. Marigold, one of my favourite, if vicious roses. Just look at the thorns on this thing. Don't enjoy pruning marigold, but I do enjoy seeing it at this time of year. Those beautiful, the way the buds unfold, it's just absolutely gorgeous with orangey red fading to the pale buttercup yellow. This little one's been in a long time, struggles a while because we planted it under the most enormous beech tree, but just goes to show you don't give up if you've got a difficult spot in the garden. They may not do as well as if they were planted in full sun and a deep loamy soil, but they'll still do. There's more roses starting on the old farmhouse as the wisteria just fades away. Plenty of blossom and bud on there. Just spotted, see that little wren's nest just perched in there. Got about 5 wren's nests around the farm at the moment, various positions. Seem to have an explosion of wrens, which is lovely because I do love watching them. The morning sun just coming round, giving us that lovely long view, extending over the farmyard beyond. Hopefully going to be a good gardening day. Plenty to do here. In this short video I've spotted a good crop of bindweed and nettles to get to grips with, but by and large it's a lovely thing to have and to care for and to just sometimes sit and enjoy. Thanks for watching.